Welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, let's talk about honesty and transparency. Hello and welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. My name is Kale Houser. Thank you for joining me today. This is the third of my three-part series where I discuss my takeaways and the big aha moments and things I learned from listening to Marcus Lemonis, CEO of Camping World and star of the Prophet TV show on CNBC, and then an upcoming TV show called, I think it's called The The Renovator on CNBC. If you have not listened to the previous two episodes that immediately preceded this one, please make sure you go back and do so, titled Opportunity and Responsibility. And then the second one was Trying on Thoughts, where we talk about those two different concepts in those episodes of what Marcus Lemonis talked about. This is the finale. Like I said, Marcus Lemonis was the keynote speaker at Funnel Hacking Live this year, put on by ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson and his crew, where a bunch of just crazy entrepreneurs and funnel hackers get together and talk about all things marketing, but in a large part talk about mindset and different things that affect our ability to be an entrepreneur beyond just the technical skills of writing ads and copy and building websites and all those types of things. And Marcus Lemonis certainly fell into the category of mindset and overall being a success in life as well as in business. And as he was wrapping up his keynote speaking gig and opportunity, the thing he brought up is, what is most important to him, having been and being a successful business person. And for him, and you saw this certainly if you've ever watched his shows, specifically The Prophet, if you've ever followed what he does, for him it was honesty and transparency. Because he took questions and somebody had the opportunity to ask him, whether it was a plant or not, or that it was just kind of a natural question to ask somebody of their stature and their success. Like, what is the most important business practice to you being a successful business person? And he's like, flat out, honesty and transparency. And it applied to multiple facets, because we can easily say, oh yeah, of course, it's important to be honest and it's important to be upfront and transparent with your people and with your business practices and your clients and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's an easy thing to just kind of throw out there because it's kind of what you're supposed to say as an upright, upstanding business person in your community. You're like, yes, I'm, honest Ed and all those types of things. But he says what holds people back most is honesty and transparency. And I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. Like, are they purposely being dishonest? Are they purposely hiding things from their employees and their staff, from their clients, from their vendors? Like, what are we talking about here? And he went on to say, he's like, yes, absolutely. With their employees, with their customers, with their industry, like all those things. But he says, most importantly, with themselves. I'm like, okay, now we're getting into the meat of this, and like what are we talking about here? How's it affecting it? And it's such a fundamental idea, especially if you are at all have ever read a book on personal development. Like, it starts with, how are you lying to yourself? How are you lying to yourself? How are you fooling yourself? And I even talked about this in my previous episode about me with poker. Like, I went through just fooling myself, thinking I was this amazing, awesome poker player, and I just ran into bad luck. Like, I kept on lying to myself for years. Like, no, I did nothing to prepare. I did nothing to teach myself. I did nothing to educate, to become better at the game and the skill and development and all the things that go into that make a successful poker player. And I wasn't honest with myself, and I wasn't transparent, absolutely. So it kind of hit me a little bit like oh, he's talking to me, But in reality, he's talking to all of us. Excuse me, a little something caught in my throat. And you see that repeatedly as you watch episodes of The Prophet, and he found out, because surprise, surprise, some of the businesses that applied to be on that, excuse me, were absolutely not honest, or they went through these moments of wanting to hide certain aspects of their business from Marcus. And as he's getting ready to invest in them and become a legitimate partner of their business in the form of, hey, he now owns equity in the business in exchange for this money and this service and help. He would kind of go on these fact-finding, digging missions, and he was excellent at it, just in a personal inner communication sense of asking the right questions to really find the root of the answer. And when inevitably he found out whatever thing that they were hiding or trying to hide or not being upfront and honest about, he kind of more often than not just like, okay, well, thanks, have a great day, and kind of cut it off, like, because they showed their character and they showed, what they're really about. And I wouldn't say like he just dropped and walk away. Like, he always continued to find out, like, well, okay, what's the reason for this? Is this just embarrassment that you didn't want to tell me about, or like you legitimately trying to hide something illegal from me that you're involved in? And I will say, as this came up and I started thinking about it, 2 instances have popped up as I've been reading through this book. One is the 10X Mentor, where, I've talked about that book previously on earlier episodes, but Grant Cardone talks about a little bit more in depth, and he's been upfront with this before, if you've had any opportunity to hear him speak in depth, about, a previous business partner that ended up costing him like $9 million. And this is before he became who we know today as Grant Cardone, like with legitimately lots of money, like $1 billion valuation, where $9 million was legitimately like that hurt, kind of a thing. And he talks about an early business partner and this guy that had convinced him. He'd sold him. They was going to join this guy in his venture. They were going to go public and make all this money, and come to find out, in hindsight, like, this guy was a straight up liar. He was ripping people off. He was, left and right, just an absolute crook. And he was trying to, lure Grant Cardone to this. And fortunately, he says, before the ink was signed and the T's crossed and dots I's and the stamps given and notary signed their book, he backed out of the deal because he found out about it and all this stuff. Well, the guy in turn sues Grant for basically backing out of this deal. I guess you could relate it to, what Twitter is doing with Elon Musk and all that kind of insanity once you get to that level. But it cost him like $9 million because this guy wasn't honest, and he absolutely wasn't transparent. And actually, he was trying to scam Grant Cardone. But in hindsight, he's like, yeah, the writing was on the wall. Like, I should have seen, there were signs that this guy was not who he was saying he was, or was not going to be able to deliver on all these claims that he was making. And then the second instance was Alex Hormozi. I started reading recently his book, $100 Million Offers, and he talks about his journey. And one of his first business partners that he ever had, because he was in the gym launch business, is how he kind of got his start and made his first millions. It was launching gyms. And he didn't go into detail in his book about it, but he talked about, like, one of his first business partners. They had a joint account, and I think it was like the next day or early on, like, he woke up and he checked his bank account and there was like $200 in it, and his business partner completely cleared out the account and bounced. He didn't go much further into that, but it was, again, not honest and not transparent about this business partner, and he didn't go into the circumstances of how they became partners and all that kind of stuff, or what happened afterwards. But it just became this interesting theme that popped up as I was exposed to this theme that Marcus Lemonis laid out about honesty and transparency. So the takeaway for me, absolutely, the takeaway is, how am I lying to myself? Because I'm not at the point where we've got business partners. We pay people for services and things of that nature, but that's on a service basis. We pay and get something in exchange. Right now it's just Liz and I, and we are responsible solely to us. And, after 20 plus years, 26 years of marriage, we're pretty committed to each other. We're not at that stage that we're going to rip each other off or anything like that. But we absolutely go through periods of not being honest and transparent with each other. We went through kind of a huge thing recently in our marriage where it kind of came to a head of not feeling that we were being honest and transparent with each other, and it caused significant issues in our marriage. Fortunately, we were able to kind of work through those and figure out a new game plan and a way to communicate and all those types of things, as you do. No different than business. You go through phases in your marriage and learning points and breaking points that you either work through or you don't. And business is the same way. You may have a business partner that you've had for years and they're trustworthy and everything, but maybe they're not being honest, and their ultimate goals maybe aren't exactly aligned with yours. And you've got two different things, and maybe it's time to decide, do you split paths with them before it becomes this big thing where they're having to feel like go behind your back? Or the possibilities are endless. That's not the point of this, but the point is to really look at, one, you yourself. Are you being honest and transparent with your employees, with your clients, with your customer, with your business partners, with your vendors, all those types of things? Is your reputation one that you are trustworthy and honest and transparent? two, and this isn't to say like you have to open your books to everybody, right? You can't, there's a level to this. But two, are you being that with yourself? Are you doing the things because those are your actual goals? It is driving towards a goal and an intention. Or are you doing it just out of fear? Whatever the case may be, really take this time in this moment, even maybe right now, to look back and saying, okay, these are the key tasks that I'm doing or that our business is focusing on. Is this what I want? Is this the direction of the business? Whatever that is for you. Be honest with yourself and do yourself the favor of being transparent and like, this is what this means if I continue down this path. X, Y, and Z will lead to A again, or whatever that path is for you. So take that moment to really analyze and look into your business, into your relationships, into your employee-leader relationships, whatever that is, and how maybe you are missing opportunities to be upfront and honest in order to help build. Because ultimately it will build and it will attract people to you the more honest you are with them, especially in the vulnerable sense, if that is what it takes. Make sense? I'm sure you have an opinion on this. Please let me know. I'd be happy to discuss it, and maybe even have you as a guest on the podcast, and we can discuss it at length because it is a fascinating topic and one that's easy to spout, easy to just kind of put as a tagline, or even maybe one of your core values, like, oh, we're honest and transparent. But when it comes to the brass tacks, like, what does that actually mean? And are you doing it in all areas, or are you being kind of selective at your convenience and at your emotional fortitude to do so? All right. So thank you for sticking with me. Like I said, this is the part 3 of 3 for the Marcus Lemonis series from Funnel Hacking Live. If you have not, please make sure and listen to the previous 2 episodes. Share them with your friends, family, especially if they are Marcus Lemonis fans. I'd love to get their take on it as well, because I think it is an interesting aspect of his personality and how he does business and thinks about business. Those 3 different topics that we've talked about. All right, everybody, no matter where you're at in the world, have a fantastic afternoon. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.